So, like I mentioned, and many of you know, I'm going to dig into the financial realm of global governance and what is in store for us. I want you to know, heads up, this is not my forte. I'm not one of those people that does money very good. So it was a struggle, but it was interesting this morning when I prepared the framework for today's presentation, that then I went to the book of Isaiah, and sure enough, it was talking about money. And so I had to laugh. So I know that it's on the heart of the Holy Spirit. And so anyway, I will do the best that I can, but realize that I am not like this master at money. And I'm going to start out with the blueprint for digital identity because I think it gives us a good launching place, and then it will make much more sense about the disruption of the future of the finances and the monetary system if we understand that there's this whole movement and a blueprint to create this digital identity. And that is true for a personal digital identity, a business digital identity, any interaction type of digital identity, or even a big corporation. And then we're going to skip all the small print and here's stuff. This gives you an idea of what I go through to bring you some of this news. So basically they're saying that there is this blueprint for digital identity project, and it's a disruptive innovation in the financial services work. So basically they are disrupting the financial markets so that they can, once again, using a CRISPR type editing model, go ahead and insert the new fascist global governance system. And so there was this report back in 2015 on the future of financial services, and it's really framed in a pandemic language. The future of financial services project explored the landscape of disruptive innovations which we're experiencing in its financial services, provided the first consolidation of taxonomy, and that is like a viral classification language for these disruptions, and explored their potential impacts on the structure of the industry. And I thought that this image was really interesting to me. I could see several subliminal messages. One of them, like this could be a missile, it could be a rocket. To me, I saw a hypodermic needle. And so all these disruptive innovations, I think, are captured in this image. I thought it was pretty interesting. So the role financial institutions are going to play a huge part in establishing and building this digital identity. And there is going to be an infrastructure, and it is going to use blockchain, and which is a distributed ledger technology to transform the infrastructure of the financial services industry. And that, my friends, is happening right now. They are in the middle of this. So the mandate at this point was, when this was originated, of the project was to explore the digital identity and to understand the role of the financial institutions and what role they would play in global standard for digital identity. Of course, it all is based on a global standard, and they are limiting fintech innovation, and we'll go into that in a little bit. So who were some of the stakeholders and players in this? As you can see, I mean, it's pretty comprehensive. Lots of industry leaders, lots of subject matter experts were consulted in putting this together. And of course, it was global. And in 2015, 2016, so there were workshops in Singapore, New York, London, and Davos, Switzerland. So they made a digital identity primer, like what is the purpose of identity systems and why is digital identity the solution to the global identity challenge, the landscape of the digital identity, what do efforts to build the digital identity systems look like globally, the right solution for the right problem, how should digital identity systems be constructed to serve different needs, and benefits of the digital identity, who benefits them from this digital identity system, and the implementation. How do you reach a global digital identity solution? And I believe that that's where we're at right now, is they are implementing this. So what does it have to do? What does it span? Some examples are payments and loans, and a digital identity is a critical enabler of activity inside the financial services broadly. It can be streamlined partially or fully automated within many processes. There can be operational decisions, regulatory compliance, and of course, everyone wants that good customer experience and product delivery. But the relevance of digital identity stretches beyond the financial services to society as a whole. And this is where we start seeing Revelation 13 starting to come in. This identity enables many societal transactions, making strong identity systems critical to the function of society as a whole. And I want you to pay particular attention to the left where it says public transactions. And so entities are required to prove their identities or certain attributes to demonstrate their eligibility for public services. Basically, your access to social assistance, your social security, your unemployment, access to education, access to healthcare, access to civil structures and voting. So doesn't that sound a lot like the beginning of this beast system? And then there's private transactions, and those might be merchant-based, like if you're buying at the farmer's market, or a large provider transaction, such as renting an apartment or buying a car. And so they're claiming that the need for digital identity is becoming increasingly pressing, that we have to have this system, and we have to have it because the transaction volume is increasing. There is a complexity of transactions. There's rising customer expectations. There's more stringent regulatory requirements and increasing speed of the financial and reputational damage. So this identity is a multi-layered problem, making the creation of digital identity system very complex. And as we've been talking about, it's kind of, in this one, it's a top-down mandate, but they kind of have the standards at the bottom, which indicates that that is their foundation. And then they're going to work up here. And so they'll have their standards, and then each one of these are a gate or a barrier, and you have to go through these hoops to get any product or service rendered to you. So these are like gateways that will eventually keep many of us out of the system. So at the time of this report, there were many gaps in the digital identity landscape, like confusing authentication with identity. And quite frankly, I don't still really understand the difference. Even when I read this, I'm not sure what the difference between authentication and a digital identity is, but I guess we'll all be learning together. And then enabling transaction completion rather than user activity, and building consensus rather than driving action. To me, that sounds like the global hive, the global governance hive. So that's what they're striving towards. So these are the gaps, and it was the result of a crowded digital identity landscape with many different entities building solutions. So they make it complex. It doesn't have to be complex, but they are purposely making it complex. And this is one reason that you at the state and national level are having to get these new identifications, real ID, new passports, this type of thing, because it all has to go through these series of, it has to meet the standards and qualifications of the digital identification. So of course, digital identity systems can deliver scope and scale, so they can be scaled back or scaled up depending on what's needed. So there's a strong business case for financial institutions to lead the development of digital identity systems, and they actually are doing that right now. So they're trying to be very green and cost avoidance. Everyone's going after new revenue streams, and so that's part of why this is happening, to get more money out of your pockets. And there's transformational future state opportunities. And of course, they're hoping that you will have an improved customer experience and be happy in your bondage. And so some things that we're going to be seeing emerge are new financial products and services, identity as a service, and identity-only customers. And so here are some different ways that businesses and markets are going to transform their businesses. There's going to be a shift in the allocation of liability. There will be trust brokerages, disruption in the credit bureau model, refocusing around the customer. But if you notice, under refocusing around the customer, it is blurring the lines between the financial and non-financial advisory. So that's kind of an interesting situation. I don't know how they will accomplish that. And then the public sector partnerships. So that will impact things like your taxes. So here are some configuration options for the development of digital identity systems with their advantages and drawbacks. So that could be a single institution, and I think as things are standing right now, that's going to be less and less. You're going to see more in the consortium where it's a group. There's also the utility. And I thought that this one was pretty interesting, the way that they matrix this out. So the drivers of the identity system and wasted sources for users and data breaches. I mean, it's just, here we all are plugged right in to the hive. So as you can see, they want an identity system that is going to address all these things for people, for businesses, and society as a whole. But you're going to have to be plugged into the system to get it. So I like the good old days when physical identity was designed to enable face-to-face transaction among entities. I like that. But the digital economy is changing the way that identity transactions occur, and that is true because so much of our economy now is based through the virtual world. And so we need this digital identity. So a digital identity system, of course, is digitally based. It is interconnected and it's flexible. And I would say, although they didn't put it here, it's controllable. And here's new and maturing technologies that have important implications for the creation of a robust digital identity system, and everything has to be robust these days. See, now what they're doing right now with COVID-19 is they are eliminating what if we rejected this new digital identity? Well, with COVID-19, they're not asking for your consent just due to this emergency situation. This is the way it's going to be. So they've basically taken it off the table. And they've taken a lot of things off the table with this COVID-19 as far as whether we will accept whatever they're going to insert across the spectrum. It doesn't matter if it's banking, healthcare, consumption. They are putting this global governance into play, and we don't have a say about it. And then I might let you just get this document. It's at the www.weforum.org/docs, WEF_A as in Apple _blueprint_digital_identity.pdf. So here on this page, on page 41, you can see what things they might be collecting for your digital identity. That will include things, physical attributes like your age, your height, your birth date, your fingerprints, any other biometric things that you have. Do you have any legal entities associated with you? What about your assets? Assets are a big thing that they are working on for quite a long time since this whole thing came about. Your health records are part of it, your preferences and behaviors, even your telephone metadata, your ownership history, your transaction history, business records, legal records, your national identifier number, your telephone number, your email address, any other identifying numbers, your legal jurisdiction, any identifying numbers, and your custodianship. And so you're going to have to prove who you are. And that's why all these vetting and verification is going to get a lot worse. I know my bank says that I have to change my password like every 30 days now. And there's always this vetting process. And I just got from somebody, I can't remember who, they just renewed their terms of contract for using their service. So we're going to see a lot more of this as this digital identity comes online. And so at least for the time, these identity systems, they evolve inside natural borders. But then once the system is fully on board, there will not be any boundaries except for keeping people out that do not have access. So everybody has their part, their role, their function to exist in the identity system. And for some of us who choose not to be part of that, there will be very hard consequences that we will have to deal with. And then of course, they're trying to sell it to us. And so this is what, here you are, you're just a node, and here's artificial intelligence, here's the global system and how you're plugged into it. So there will be a centralized identity with a single source of truth. So as we consider, do we become part of this digital identity, realize that they have a single source of truth, and that is not Jesus Christ, it is not the Bible. It is a centralized antichrist system. and they're going to sell it to you because it's low cost, it's immutable, so it can't be falsified. Of course, it's a false system, but it can't be falsified. And record keeping and transactions can be executed from any device on or offline, so it's very convenient. And they are really going to stress convenience to us for us to buy in. And the other day we were studying about the federated system, and here we see the federated system again coming up, and it's best suited to provide a single version of truth and a complete, accurate, and standardized view of data, while allowing users to authenticate to a set of third parties, thereby eliminating proprietary logins. And there's two types of archetypes. So they are saying that the guiding principles for digital identity, it is a social good. The system is designed as a social good that is available to all users if they accept the system, of course, and will deliver maximum benefit to a range of stakeholders. It's privacy enhancing. The user information is only exposed to the right entities, which is everybody, basically, under the right circumstances. There is no privacy. I don't care how much they say privacy, there is no privacy. It is user-centric. That is true. It is precision. Users have control over their information and can determine who holds and accesses it. That I disagree with. I do not believe that it is, you will have control over any of your data. It becomes part of that global social good that they just talked about just a minute ago. It's viable and sustainable as a business because, remember, our data is the new oil of the 21st century. And it's open and flexible. That means that it can change at any time. And then this goes into each one of these areas and does a background on it, the implications, which we're not going to go into. And of course, they want us to all think it's beneficial for us. And once again, they're going to give us a whole lot of reasons that we're going to have our privacy and control, which is a lie. That it's going to be secure, that's a lie. It's going to be convenient, that's a lie. For anybody that has ever dealt with technology, sometimes it's a bigger headache to have the technology than it is to just do it the old-fashioned way. And transparency, that's a semantic trick. They're saying, oh, you're gonna, what you see is what you get, but that's not the truth either. That's a lie. So of course, this will benefit external stakeholders, which would be the government and all the regulators. It would streamline their efficiency. It's going to provide them great revenue streams for all the people that can't be compliant. They can trace assets. Anyway, this gives you a little bit of an overview, a bird's eye view of this potential future state applications, tailored risk profiles, international resettlement, attributes tied to payment tokens, digital tax filing, determining total risk exposure, identifying transaction counterparties, linking individual identity to corporate identity, and tracking total assets. So it's interesting, they do say that this is a bottom up. So they say that global identity will never exist as a monolith. That's interesting. And so that's it with digital identity. This is just a blueprint, kind of a primer, so that as we go into this next point, the shaping of the future of financial and monetary systems. So we need to dive in and find out about this. So they're going to build a more efficient, resilient, and equitable international financial system that protects customers, enables saving and investment for growth while supporting the creation of jobs and enterprises. The financial and monetary systems represent the cornerstone of economic activity. And over the past decade, important steps have been taken to strengthen system resilience. At the same time, a rapid transformation of the system is defining new economic poles, driving power away from institutions to non-state actors, and accelerating technological disruption, which is where we're at right now, with significant implications for existing and future value chains and employment. Demographic shifts and political polarization are also significantly influenced in the system. And of course, their platform is supposedly the impartial and trusted space for stakeholders to connect. So this is going to be an age of the blockchain. And I'm going to try and work from two computers here. We'll see. So the summary of this is many central banks are independently exploring distributed ledger technology for use within their financial systems, and this is basically blockchain. And the forum shared platform streamlines and enhances these efforts by coordinating research, sharing, and collaboration among the central banks for deployment. The challenge is that the central banks play one of the most critical roles in global economy, from managing price stability and monetary policy to safeguarding the domestic financial systems through oversight of the commercial banks. Their decision about implementing distributed ledger and digital currency technologies in the future will have far-reaching consequences on the financial and monetary systems, domestic economies, and the welfare of citizens. The distributed ledger technology, which is the acronym is DLT, has a potential to enhance the efficiency, financial inclusion, resiliency, and security in the financial system. At the same time, any imprudent DLT or digital currency implementation poses significant risk to the financial stability or even on a domestic or international scale. Central banks around the world have been formally and informally experimenting with DLT. And they are often conducting research independently without efficient ways to share insights. Central banks across economies also have difficulty closely following rapidly evolving developments in DLT and digital currency technology in order to fully understand their implications, possibilities, and risks. They must at once understand and evaluate technology capabilities available now and in the future, and determine their future and applicability to the financial systems and central bank operations. So we're going to see opportunities for significant research and knowledge building among the central banks to serve common and unique research goals across the countries and reduce the risk of implementation, although I believe we are at the place of implementation right now. So the next thing is fighting the coalition to fight financial crime. Illicit proceeds from criminal activity are estimated to account for 2 to 5% of the global GDP, about $2 trillion US dollar, and yet less than 1% is ever seized or frozen by law enforcement agencies. The current anti-money laundering regime is not fit to combat a crisis at this scale. As such, the coalition presents a concerted and collaborative effort to address the societal costs and risks that financial crime poses to the integrity of the global financial system through 5 key objectives: raising global awareness of financial crime and its grave financial and human consequences, promote more effective information sharing between public and private entities on a coordinated and global level, propose mechanisms to identify emerging threats and best practices, to develop a more robust money laundering system and controls, identifying pain points in the current global AML regime and proposing solutions to address these, and supporting initiatives to assist governments and law enforcement to effectively identify and seize assets of criminals. And I guess what I'd like to share with you is this really interesting thing that happened to me about 6 years ago when they were doing an experimentation, and this was Wells Fargo, and I had a bunch of farmers market checks that I was taking into Wells Fargo to put them into my account. And the lady took the checks and she disappeared. I mean, she disappeared for a long time, like a really long time. And the manager came, and they both went into the vault. And then they said, I'm a little bit fuzzy because it's been, quite some time ago. The long and short of it is they were not going to allow one of the checks to be put into my account. I did have a business account. It was Shepherd's Heart. I had done business with them for 25 years, and yet they were accusing me of money laundering. And I still to this day don't know why or what the trigger was, but it was a very uncomfortable situation. I did talk to the manager, and then I went up there, well, in the military, it would be called a chain of command, but up the chain, and I did complain about it. And like I said, they never, because it was an experiment, because they were trying to play with this particular system, they really never gave me any justification. They don't need to let the customer know under that know your customer thing. They can just do what they want. So I was furious. So I did get another bank, but you can expect that if we do not go along with the global governance system, we are going to be branded as criminals, and any of the activity that we engage in financially, if we try to work within their global governance system of finances, could be seized by and frozen by law enforcement agents who don't believe that we are compliant enough, or let's say we've done some ecological damage or something, and they want to hold us responsible for it. It's going to be really an uncomfortable situation. So the preparing for the future of work in financial services as technology develops at an accelerated pace, cognitive abilities and tasks that were once reserved for humans are increasingly automated, and there's a window of opportunity now for our industry to be proactively manage this transition, ensuring that the gains are maximized and negative impact is contained and opportunities are shared equally regardless of gender, age, and origin. This project will bring together an industry task force to develop a roadmap of how financial services industry can put in place innovative, company-specific, industry-wide, multi-stakeholder programs to prepare for the work of the future. And then learning or living, learning, and earning longer. Of course, they want us to just work until we drop over. So this has to do with the world has entered a new phase of demographic development. People are living longer, healthier lives. Government pension schemes are generally ill-equipped to manage this change, and insurers have the unique opportunity to step in with innovative, client-centric offerings tailored to one's life cycle. And with enhanced financial literacy programs and with a mandate to fundamentally shift mindsets around retirement planning by adopting age-inclusive policies, enabling employment throughout one's lifespan, and empowering people to make informed, proactive decisions around the retirement, insurers and other stakeholders can help foster a multi-generational, inclusive workforce of the future. So basically, what you are going to be doing is working your whole life until you drop, is what they're basically saying. Then the next one, the Task Force on Digital Financing of the Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, they want everything to revolve around the digitization and the reshaping of finance to pay for these sustainable development goals, which they say that we have to have, and it is estimated to be a $5 to $7 trillion annual investment. And then there's the Cyber Consortium of Financial Services, and over cybercrime over the next 5 years is expected to be $8 trillion. Then balancing financial stability and economic growth. This project aims to enable opportunities and mitigate the risk related to technology-enabled transformation of the financial system. It will achieve this by developing a deeper understanding of how industry transformation is impacting the financial system's responsibility to promote economic growth and ensure financial stability. And of course, I'm not going to go into too much about China, but the future of financial services in China, as we can see, China had to have this great big disruptor because it is pivotal to the global effort, and China was kind of independent. They wanted to run the show. And so with this pandemic, and I'm calling it a pandemic because it is multiple countries that the virus has hit, it had to be disrupted so that they could insert into China their goals. So here in sustainable banking, once again, we see that climate change is inserted into this narrative of sustainable banking and being low carbon economy. And then, as we talked about yesterday, promoting global financial inclusions. So all the financial services need to serve underserved, the underserved through digital means, which means they're reaching out to the poorest of the poor. And that doesn't necessarily mean for their good. It just means that everyone is going to have to go into this new global financial system. And then, of course, shaping the financial institution of the future includes the AI, the cloud, the blockchain, the Internet of Things in the financial services. And it's already operating right now. And here, this gives you some ideas about what's going on in the financial sector. I found the new physics of financial services, how artificial intelligence is transforming the financial ecosystem, to be particularly interesting. If you want to take a look at that. Everything is being metriced right now. I found this article really interesting. as well as the global financial and monetary system of 2030. I mean, that's less than 10 years away, and this whole system will be very firmly in place by that time. And then we went over the blueprint for digital identity. And then, of course, there's some stuff on fintech. And then it concludes with the disruptive innovation in financial services by blockchain. So I hope this gives you a little bit of a touch. This is only just an introduction to the future of financial and monetary systems. We will be going into cryptocurrency and some other aspects, investing, looking at other aspects of the monetary change that's ahead of us. But for now, this gives us something to chew on, just to be aware of in case something happens at the drop of a hat and we don't get back to revisit this. But I believe we will. I really do want to cover this because I think that anything that we don't cover, what I'm seeing as I'm reviewing all of this global governance that is being put into place right now, is that the news and the media is all on board. They are all, the news that we're seeing, it's embedded in there. But if you're not familiar with it, you don't see it. But by introducing it to you in little bits and pieces, I'm hoping that you can pick it up in your local news, even in entertainment. It is interesting. There is a whole section on entertainment, but they kept that very close to their chest. They didn't want you to know what their plan was for entertainment. It's just a brief little paragraph of what they're doing, and there was not much else referenced. I do know I've seen different TV series and movies that the United Nations is consulted, and there's collaboration, of course, with the different agencies. There's also collaboration. So none of these things that entertainment-wise that we're getting, it's all agenda-driven. Even YouTube is agenda-driven. So anyway, I hope this helps you understand where we're at economically. We're just getting our little toes wet right now. And I will have some exciting financial revelations for you next week as we go deeper into the rabbit hole of the restructuring into the global governance B system. God bless.